Where does imposter syndrome come from? I'm going to talk a little bit about that today and things you need to know to be able to break free from that. So, hey, my name is Rochelle Walsh, and if you are new to me, I have been a complex trauma therapist for many years, and I now work with women in a 90-day program, Joyful and Present. So, we are going to talk about imposter syndrome. And so, if you're not familiar with that terminology, well, obviously, if you're here, you're familiar with that terminology probably. And basically, what it means is that even though by outward appearances you might be in a certain place, you might have a certain job or a certain life situation, and yet there's something in you that's constantly feeling like you don't quite measure up, or this isn't really consistent with who you are in the inside, or that you shouldn't be in the room, or that who are you to experience this. And so we're going to talk about that because it is a huge ceiling and holds women back. Let's take, for instance, people who really have a drive to move forward in their professions, right? Like they feel called to do something, or they've invested a lot in terms of their skills and their abilities, and they are someone who likes to achieve at a high level, so they make sure they check all the boxes, they strive higher and higher, and they keep thinking that once they get to that level, they're going to feel a certain thing, they're going to feel accomplished, or they're going to be able to relax more. And yet that bar keeps moving, and they get to one level and then they feel like, well, I've achieved it, but it doesn't feel congruent for them. And the reason that this can be so, imposter syndrome is such a form of self-sabotage, is because there is a lot of stress that goes with that. There's a lot of stress. So the first way is that just exactly that, and something I talk about in a lot of my other videos, is that when we have subconscious belief patterns like I'm not good enough, or I'm not enough, or I shouldn't be here, or I always have to do more, or I'm only worthy if I'm achieving, even if you know that's not true up there, it feels like you need to, you're constantly operating from a place of shoulds and ought tos. So with imposter syndrome, if we never feel like we're there yet, this chronic stress response, some of these psychological drivers for chronic stress are on, and that's really going to wear at your energy reserves. It's going to compromise your thinking brain if you're in the stress response, so then you actually become less effective, you can't make decisions as quickly, you have memory issues, you might have brain fog, but just generally feeling depleted, right? Generally feeling like you're going, and you're operating from empty. So the first thing that self-sabotage does is, again, create that real stress response. Second of all, imposter syndrome really stops us from being able to celebrate, right? So again, we get that good thing, but before we even get to celebrate that or acknowledge the win, what happens is that we are thinking about what's left to do. What else should we be doing? What's next? And while it's good to be growth-minded, it's not good to be, we want to do that from a place of enthusiasm and energy rather than drive and depletion. With the stress response and then not being able to celebrate, right? We don't get the feel-good experience from those achievements. So we don't get that dopamine, right? If we can't celebrate, we don't get that dopamine that comes with, wow, I did a great job, and look at this. Like, this is such an amazing experience, and stop to be able to enjoy it. So people that can't really celebrate and enjoy their success because of this imposter syndrome, it feels like I have to constantly be doing more to achieve. They're seeing all the things that they can still or need to be doing without being able to recognize where they are. So this isn't about having, some people might say, well, I don't ever want to be content, I just want to keep growing. Well, if you don't allow yourself to really celebrate and experience, you're really going to be cheating yourself out of, a healthy nervous system, as well as what fuels us to be able to, again, achieve from a place of interest and energy and purpose. And it's going to constantly be driven by something else, right? That's less desirable. Another thing that can happen with imposter syndrome is that we will fall short. We will fall short of our goals because the fear of failure, right? Because if we're suffering from imposter syndrome, there's probably a great fear of I can only do things if I can do things perfectly. And if I don't fail, and the fear of failure, the fear of rejection becomes stifling. So we don't actually expand our vision to what it could be. We're held back to seeing only what we think we could do well because there's such a pressure to perform at a high level and to not experience failure, rejection, or not disappoint anyone. So, imposter syndrome is something that, again, depletes our nervous system, causes us to not be able to celebrate, not really enjoy life, and thwarts our full expression of our potential. So, here's something that's important to understand when it comes to how do we get beyond this? What if we can look outside and see the achievements, see that we've met the mark, see that we've gotten the grade or earned the thing, or that we've done a good job? And this doesn't have to just be professionally, this can be in our home life. Maybe we're a cycle breaker and we become a different kind of mom than the one that we experienced, or we said at some point in our life, when I grow up, I'm going to do it this way. And we've done that. Maybe we come from a lineage where divorce was the norm, and now we have a successful marriage. And yet, we're not able to stop and really enjoy that. So this doesn't just have to be professionally, but let's say that personally, we have gotten to a place that at one point we wanted to be, right? At one point we wanted to be there, and now we're there. One of the things that's super important to do is to understand that to relieve imposter syndrome means to fix core beliefs. The things I'm talking about with imposter syndrome, these are things that are in the subconscious part of the brain, right? They're part of our autopilot, and that information is really vaulted and secured because the brain thinks it's important for survival. So the most common mistake I see made is that people will work a lot on mindset. So typically people that are, they're listening to podcasts, they maybe love the motivational stuff, the mindset stuff. And so they're constantly listening to things and focused a lot on self-improvement, which is great because that's great information to acquire. The reason it fails to truly release someone from imposter syndrome is because if all you're doing is working on mindset and motivation without calming the nervous system first, you are going to hit a brick wall. And I say that because when our system is in a state and a stress response, a nervous system stress response, it's almost like things become more locked up, more unbendable. So we want to really start with imposter syndrome. What you really want to start doing is getting to a calm place, right? Because when you do that, when you start really trying to calm yourself through strategies that are not thinking motivated, right? You actually, it's like open sesame. You can get into that subconscious and truly reprogram those core beliefs that feed the imposter syndrome. If you try to fix the imposter syndrome while in this state of overdrive, by staying in your head, you're really not going to get to these core programs like I need to achieve to be worthy, or I'm not good enough, or it's not okay to be me, or I have to please everyone, or I have to constantly be taking care of everything, or I'm responsible for everything. If you can't get to a calm place, right, and that's going to require things that are really body-based, not focused on trying to reason. So those are going to be things like vagus nerve activation and consistent breath work and mind-body connection. Visualizations can be helpful, but really doing things that work through the body and through that lower brain, then it's going to be much easier to reprogram those core beliefs. If you consistently work on mindset to try to fix imposter syndrome, you're going to be stuck. You're going to be stuck not knowing why it doesn't feel true for you. So take some time. If you want to understand a little bit more about this, you can click my link below to watch my masterclass, noticing that sometimes it's just going in the back door. And with imposter syndrome, it really is about going through the back door of the nervous system, right? Because if you're trying to push at it, like, I know I should, you're still, if you're still relying on something outward, right? And that's really what imposter syndrome is saying, I'm working really hard outwardly to control how I feel inwardly. And that's why there's an incongruence, because we can achieve, we can meet the mark, we can get the job, we can raise the family, we can do the thing. But the outside doesn't impact the inside, right? When we work on the inside, we're going to be able to not only achieve even at a higher level, but we're going to be able to truly enjoy it when we get there. So I hope that's helpful. And persistence is key in anything that we're changing in terms of nervous system regulation. We don't have to do this from a state of there's something wrong with me, I'm broken. The women that I work with are not only highly motivated to do good things in life, but they're growth minded. And that's really what it takes, is when we learn the new thing, we do the new thing, and we keep growing. And that's a part of our identity. And so don't let discouragement hold you back. Don't let imposter syndrome hold you back, right? Each one of us has a distinct and great purpose that we were created for, and you have everything that you need to be the person that you are destined to be. And it's really just about relaxing enough to let yourself move forward in that and enjoy the process. So hope that's helpful. See you in the next video. Bye.